A group of men recline on cushions in a borrowed, upper-story room in Jerusalem, listening to the sound of a city preparing for blood. And because we read it that way, with our modern church lenses firmly in place, we miss the absolute shock in the room, quietly waiting for the temple guards to come. A body crushed like grain, a body subjected to the fire of divine judgment, a body torn apart so the pieces could be placed into the trembling hands of men who do not yet understand what it costs to feed them. In the heavy silence of that upper room, the transition of the ages is happening in the space between a rabbi's hands. God is moving the epicenter of human rescue, from a nation to a person, from a geographic exodus to a cosmic deliverance. They swallow the bread, the dry crumbs scratching the backs of their throats. But the bread was only the first half of the revelation, because resting on the low table, casting long shadows in the lamplight, are 4 specific cups of wine. And Jesus is reaching for the third. The Passover liturgy revolves around 4 cups, 4 promises, 4 verbs, 4 heavy vessels of dark red wine. They are not optional. They are not suggestions. They are the structural pillars of the night. They are anchored in the ancient text of Exodus chapter 6. God makes 4 distinct declarations to Moses. I will bring you out. That is the first cup. The cup of sanctification. I will deliver you. That is the second cup. The cup of rescue. I will redeem you. That is the third cup. The cup of redemption. But if you look closer at the ancient liturgy they were strictly following, at the specific cups of wine on the table, I will take you as my people. That is the fourth cup. The cup of praise. 4 cups. 4 stages of freedom. You drink them in strict order. You do not skip one. You do not alter the sequence. Now look at the Gospel of Luke. Luke gives us an exact timestamp for the moment Jesus picks up the wine. Luke 22:20 says, "In the same way, after the supper, he took the cup." After the supper, that is the third cup. He is holding the cup of redemption. In the first century rabbinic mind, this specific cup is the climax of the physical rescue. It represents the blood of the Passover lamb. It represents the warm blood smeared on the rough wooden doorframes in Goshen. It is the visual, physical reminder of the price paid to stop the angel of death. But look at the text again. Look at the empty space in the center of the table. There is no lamb. There is no roasted meat. Jesus lifts the clay vessel. The dark red wine catches the lamplight. He looks at his disciples and says, "This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood." He is not using a spiritual metaphor. At the exact moment Jesus decides to go off script, you start to see something the standard reading completely misses. He is declaring a literal substitution. He is not adding a new Christian sacrament to the end of a Jewish holiday. He is becoming the missing lamb. The blood on the wood in Egypt is obsolete. The blood on the wood of the cross is taking its place. The rescue from Pharaoh is stepping aside for the rescue from sin and death itself. He is claiming the cup of redemption entirely for himself. The disciples drink. The thick, sweet wine burns the backs of their throats. The liturgy dictates what must happen next. The script is rigid. You sing the final Hallel Psalms. You pour the fourth cup, the cup of praise. I will take you as my people. The meal is not over until the fourth cup is drained. To leave the table before the fourth cup is to leave the Exodus unfinished. It is a violation of the liturgy. It is to stay trapped in the wilderness, somewhere between Egypt and the Promised Land. But Jesus does something unthinkable. He sets the empty third cup on the table. He does not pour the fourth. He stands up. He walks out into the cold, dark night toward a garden called Gethsemane. The dinner is not finished. The oil lamps in the upper room begin to burn low, smoking against the limestone walls. He is not inventing a new tradition. He is hijacking an ancient one. The real question of the Last Supper isn't just what Jesus started. The dark dregs of the third cup are drying in the clay vessels. The ancient script demands the fourth. The liturgy demands the cup of praise, the final anchor of the Exodus, where God says, "I will take you as my people." But Matthew and Mark both record a vow that stops the ritual dead in its tracks. Jesus looks at his disciples and says, I will not drink again of this fruit of the vine until that day, when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." Then, the text says, they sing a hymn and go out. They push back from the low table. They walk out the heavy wooden door. They step into the cold night air. The bitter wind sweeping up from the Kidron Valley, hitting their faces. The gravel crunching under their leather sandals as they walk toward the Mount of Olives. The Last Supper is not a concluded dinner. It is an open parenthesis. Jesus is deliberately leaving the Passover unfinished. He is freezing the ancient liturgy right between the cup of redemption and the cup of consummation. He takes the meal with him into the dark. He takes it to the olive trees of Gethsemane, where his knees hit the dirt. He takes it to the stone courtyard of Caiaphas. He takes it to the Roman cross. It is what he interrupted. When he holds up the unleavened bread, tears it in half, and says, "Do this in remembrance of me." When he hangs on the wood the next afternoon, his throat parched. He gasps, "I thirst." The soldiers lift a sponge soaked in cheap, sour wine to his cracked lips. But that is the wine of suffering. It is not the fourth cup. It is not the cup of praise. The fourth cup is still waiting. By leaving the table before the final pour, Jesus is making a massive eschatological statement. He is saying that the rescue is inaugurated, but the celebration is delayed. The redemption has been purchased by his broken body, but the final, physical gathering of his people is yet to come. The true Passover will not be finished until the kingdom is fully realized. He is tying the anticipation of his disciples to his own waiting. He will wait for the final cup, and they must wait with him. The church has been living inside that unfinished meal for 2,000 years. Every time a believer tears a piece of bread or lifts a tiny cup of juice, they are standing in the gap between the third cup and the fourth. But human beings are terrible at waiting. And when we forget what the bread and the cup are actually meant to do when we lose the terrifying weight of the anamnesis, we do not just lose a piece of history. We lose our theological gravity entirely. He is not offering a sentimental suggestion. He is not asking them to occasionally think nice thoughts about him when they gather. We have stripped the table of its violence. We peel back the thin cellophane on tiny, mass-produced communion cups. We chew perfectly round wafers that dissolve on the tongue like paper. We sit in padded pews, heads bowed and eyes closed tight, while an instrument plays something slow and mournful in the background. We have turned the most explosive meal in human history into a funeral, because we have lost the Jewish context of the Passover. We have lost the theological gravity of the bread and the wine. We assume remembrance means looking inward, digging up personal guilt, and trying very hard to feel sad about what Jesus suffered. We treat the bread like a memorial plaque for a tragedy. The table is not a wake for a dead martyr. It is the active threshold of a new creation. When Jesus instituted the anamnesis, he was not asking us to simply recall a piece of missing information. He was pulling the entire weight of his victory forward into our present reality. The early church understood this. For them, breaking the bread was not a somber, individualistic moment of self-reflection. It was an act of theological defiance. When you sit at this table, you are not looking backward through a telescope at an execution that happened 2,000 years ago. He is replacing the focal point of the most sacred night of the Jewish calendar with himself. He is making a terrifying, cosmic claim. You are stepping into the same time-collapsing portal the Jewish people used on the 14th of Nisan. You become the slave walking out of Egypt. You become the disciple sitting in the upper room. The blood is not a historical fact. It is the covering on the doorpost of your own life. Right now, shielding you from the angel of death. The broken bread is not a symbol of defeat. It is the physical proof that the affliction has been absorbed, the debt has been canceled, and the exodus has been won. He is not installing a monument. He is weaponizing a memory. Every time we eat the bread and drink the cup, we are making a public declaration that the old world, the world of pharaohs and Caesars, of sin and death, has been decisively broken. We are eating the food of the promised land while still standing in the wilderness. We are sitting in the gap between the third cup of redemption and the final. delayed cup of praise, holding the tension of a rescue that is already finished but not yet fully arrived. But what happens when you finally put the meal back where it belongs? What happens to your own life when you stop treating this dinner like a funeral and start reading the menu the way it was originally written? That rewrites the very fabric of their national history. To feel the weight of what happens in that upper room, you cannot start with a modern communion wafer. A group of men reclined in a borrowed room and the script of a nation shattered. A table sat empty of its roasted center, and the true lamb finally spoke. A piece of unleavened dough was snapped in half, and a cosmic affliction was assumed. A 1,500-year-old memory was hijacked, and the Exodus was rewritten. A third cup of dark red wine was poured, and the blood on the doorposts was replaced. A finale. Fourth cup was left untouched on the table, and a promised kingdom was delayed. A savior walked out into the cold night, and the rescue of the world began. Same bread, same cup, one unfinished meal, but maybe the part that stays with me most is that empty space in the center of the table. The disciples waiting for the roasted meat, anticipating the familiar smell of the sacrifice. Entirely confused by a menu that seemed broken, he didn't fill the space with another symbol, he filled it with himself. He looked at men who were terrified of the Roman occupation just outside their window, and he handed them a piece of torn, gritty crust. If you are in a season where you feel stuck in the waiting, if your rescue feels inaugurated, but not yet fully realized, if you are sitting in the dark between the third cup of your redemption and the fourth cup of your final praise, you have to start with the Exodus. You have to step into the rigid, unbreakable order of the Passover meal itself. The Last Supper is a place to sit. You are not waiting by accident. You are participating in the ancient liturgy of the church. The fourth cup is coming. But right now, you are held in the tension of an unfinished meal by a God who promised he will not drink it until he can drink it with you. And may the God who tore the bread of affliction so you would never have to eat it alone, walk with you through your own waiting and bring you to the table when the final cup is poured. If this opens something up for you, subscribe, leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who feels stuck in the wilderness right now. And please, pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. Because according to the ancient script of that dinner, something massive was missing from their table, and the man leading the meal was speaking entirely out of turn. Outside, the bleating of 250,000 lambs echoes against the limestone walls of the Temple Mount. A chaotic symphony of sacrifice rising into the spring night. In the modern, Western world, memory is a file cabinet. You open a drawer, pull out a mental folder labeled "The Past," review the information, and put it back. You remember your childhood. You remember a history lesson. Memory is a passive retrieval of dead facts, separated from you by the safety of time. But in the Hebrew scriptures, memory operates on an entirely different axis. To understand the earthquake Jesus is causing at the table, you have to understand the Jewish theology of memory. The blueprint for the Passover meal is laid out in Exodus chapter 12. God is giving Moses the instructions. For the night the angel of death will strike Egypt. The instructions are rigid. Blood on the doorposts. Unleavened bread. Sandal-clad feet. Ready to run. And in verse 14, he gives a command that will forge Jewish identity for millennia. This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord. The word your English Bible translates as memorial is the Hebrew noun zikaron. It comes from the root verb zakar, which simply means to remember. But in the biblical worldview, zakar is never just cognitive. It is always active. It is an intervention. Inside, the air is thick. The stone floor is covered with the dust of travelers, and the oil lamps cast long, flickering shadows against the walls. When God remembers Noah floating in the flooded world, he doesn't suddenly recall that Noah is out there. He sends a wind to recede the waters. When God remembers his covenant with Abraham, he brings plagues upon Pharaoh. Remembering always produces a physical, kinetic reality. When commanded of the people, Zikaron demands a collapse of time. The Mishnah, the oral tradition of the rabbis, explicitly states that in every generation, a person is obligated to regard himself as if he personally came out of Egypt, not his great-grandparents. Him, Zikaron, is not the passive recall of a historical event. It is the aggressive pulling of history forward into the present room. When the family gathers on the 14th of Nisan, they do not just recite a dusty poem. They eat bitter herbs, letting the sharp, acidic sting burn the back of their throats. So the pain of Egyptian slavery is felt in their own nervous system. They chew dry, unrisen bread, feeling the gritty, crumbling texture of a hurried escape. They drink thick cups of dark red wine, tasting the sweetness of freedom mixed with the cost of the blood painted on the doorposts. The liturgy is an immersive, sensory portal, designed to make the exodus happen right now. The participants become the slaves. The dining room becomes the threshold of the Red Sea. It smells of roasted meat, bitter herbs, and the sharp, dusty tang of unleavened bread. It is Thursday night, the 14th day of the month of Nisan. The past becomes the immediate present. For 15 centuries, the anchor of this Zikaron, the absolute center of gravity for the entire night, was a specific piece of roasted meat. Every prayer, every cup, every blessing on the table orbited around it. But there is a detail hiding in plain sight in the gospel accounts of the Last Supper. And the part that makes this remarkable is what Jesus and his disciples are not eating. Look at the table in the upper room. Scan the elements resting on the low wooden surface. A bowl of bitter herbs, a dish of salt water, a stack of dry, unleavened bread, dark red wine poured into thick clay cups. Now look closer. Look at the center. The Passover liturgy requires a lamb, a flawless, one-year-old male, its throat slit in the temple courts, its blood caught in a silver basin, its body roasted whole over an open fire. The city outside is saturated in blood. 250,000 lambs are dying today. The priests are working barefoot in rivers of red on the Temple Mount. The smell of roasting fat and wood smoke drifts through the windows from 1,000 other houses in Jerusalem. The whole nation is feasting on the sacrifice. But look at the biblical text. Read Matthew. Read Mark. Read Luke. Read John. Scan the menus of the Last Supper. Count the items. They are doing what their fathers did. They are doing what their grandfathers did. They are participating in a meal. The bread is there. The cup is there. The dipping bowl is there. The lamb is missing. Jesus sits at the head of the table. He washes dusty feet. He recites the blessings. He sings the Hallel Psalms. But he serves no meat. The disciples know the rules. They asked him where to prepare the meal. They walked through the crowded, chaotic streets. They know the strict slaughtering rituals. They are waiting for the main course. They are waiting for the physical anchor of the Zikaron. Yet the central platter sits empty. The missing lamb is not an oversight. It is an announcement. To eat a Passover meal without a lamb is a scandal. It violates the Torah. It breaks the 1,500-year-old chain. It is a dinner missing its heart. But Jesus does not apologize for the empty space. He uses it. He is dismantling the ancient liturgy piece by piece. He is stripping the ritual down to the studs. The blood painted on the doorposts in Egypt is not the subject tonight. The escape from Pharaoh is not the climax. Jesus forces their eyes away from the Exodus. He pulls their attention away from Moses. He reaches across the table, his fingers close around the unleavened bread. The rough, gritty crust snaps as he tears it in half. The sound is loud in the quiet room that has bound the Jewish people together for 1,500 years. They are eating the Passover. The script demands he explain the bread. The ancient liturgy requires him to say, "This is the bread of affliction, which our fathers ate in Egypt." But he drops the script. He shatters the liturgy. He looks at the 12 men staring back at him in the flickering lamplight. And the words that come out of his mouth next are not in the ancient Haggadah. They are a Greek translation of a terrifying claim. Luke chapter 22, verse 19, records the exact moment the script shatters. Jesus takes the unleavened bread. He gives thanks. He snaps the hard, gritty crust, hands the broken pieces across the low table, and says, "This is my body, which is given for you." And then he gives the command that will echo through 2,000 years of church history. "Do this in remembrance of me." We read that phrase through the lens of modern Western thought. We treat it like a memorial plaque. We assume Jesus is asking his friends to hold a quiet, solemn moment of reflection for a dying teacher, the way we might pause to look at an old photograph. But he is not speaking English, and he is not sitting in a modern church. The word translated remembrance is the Greek noun anamnesis. It appears only 4 times in the entire New Testament. Every gesture, every bite, every sip of wine at this table is strictly prescribed. Nothing is random, nothing is casual. To a classical Greek speaker in Athens, the root anamnesko might simply mean to recall a piece of missing information. But Jesus and his disciples are not thinking like Greeks. They are operating in a deeply Hebrew framework. And when the ancient Jewish scribes translated the Old Testament into Greek, they used anamnesis as the direct, one-to-one equivalent for the Hebrew word zikaron. We are back to the aggressive, time-collapsing Jewish theology of memory. Anamnesis is not a nostalgic look backward. It is a tractor beam. It is the deliberate pulling of a past reality forward until it crashes into the present moment. For 15 centuries, the only event massive enough to demand an anamnesis at this table was the escape from Egypt. The blood painted on the wooden door frames, the screams echoing from Pharaoh's palace, the bitter taste of slavery. By holding up the bread and applying anamnesis to himself, Jesus is performing a theological earthquake. He is displacing the Exodus. He is telling 12 Jewish men that from this night forward, the gravitational center of their entire history is no longer Moses splitting the Red Sea. It is the broken bread in his hands. He is not asking to be added. Most people assume the Last Supper is the beginning of something entirely new. We imagine it as a brand new Christian ritual, instituted in a vacuum, to the end of a long list of Jewish martyrs. He is installing himself as the new anchor of human redemption. If watching the sheer audacity of Jesus dismantling a 1,500-year-old liturgy is changing how you see him, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the bread is passed from hand to hand. The disciples chew the dry, unrisen dough in stunned silence, trying to process the magnitude of the cosmic reassignment that has just taken place. They are eating the bread of affliction. But the affliction is no longer Egypt. It is the man sitting at the head of the table, whose body is about to be torn apart like the loaf they are swallowing. But the bread is only the first half of the shock. Because sitting on the table, reflecting the dim, golden light of the oil lamps, are 4 specific cups of wine. Look at the bread resting in their calloused hands. It is heavy. It is flat. It tastes of dust and ash and history. In the ancient Jewish tradition, the unleavened bread of Passover is not just a pragmatic recipe for people in a hurry. It is a profound theological statement, with Jesus simply picking up a piece of bread and a cup of wine to invent a sacrament for his followers. Leaven yeast was the rabbinic symbol of human pride, corruption, and sin. It puffs up, it swells the dough, it rots what it inflates. So the Passover bread must be pure. To keep it from rising, it must be aggressively worked. It must be pierced with holes. It must be striped by the intense heat of the baking fire. For 15 centuries, the Israelites stared at the scorch marks and the piercings, and remembered the whips of the Egyptian taskmasters. They called it lechem oni, the bread of affliction. But tonight, the shadows in the room are shifting. Jesus is not holding a relic of the past. He is holding a mirror. This bread is not a symbol of an ancient escape. It is the physical blueprint of an imminent execution. He looks at the torn, ragged edges of the crust and tells them, "This is my body. The bread is striped. Tomorrow, His back will be striped by a Roman flagrum in a stone courtyard. The bread is pierced. Tomorrow. His wrists and feet will be pierced by iron spikes on a limestone hill. The bread is completely without yeast. Tomorrow. A man completely without the swelling corruption of sin will be marched outside the city gates to die like a criminal. The affliction is no longer a geographical memory of Egypt. The affliction is sitting right in front of them, breathing the same dusty air.